Renegades. I am Sarah Erickson, VP of Sales and Marketing here at Renegade Game Studios. And I am so lucky today to be joined by Scott Almes, designer extraordinaire of Wreckland Run. And we're in the middle of our very exciting Kickstarter going on right now for Wreckland Run that hopefully Katie, who's helping us behind the scenes here today, can post a link for that in a little bit. If you aren't aware of it yet already. But hopefully you've already jumped into the Kickstarter and you're here just to find out a little bit more. So as we're going, I have a list of Scott questions. And if you have your own questions for Scott, you can post those in chat and we will do our best to get to them. So Scott, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here, especially in the middle of the campaign. Like, it's a lot of energy, so it's super fun.
Yeah, it's been such a blast just watching everybody's comments and seeing all the questions people have about everything. And just like you said, the energy of this campaign has been fantastic. And it's fun to see everybody who is in the Warp's Edge campaign come back to this one, get to see some new faces and some returning people. Also, we have tons of people that we see in our solo group on Facebook. So if you're a solo gamer and you want to go find other solo gamers, that's a really good place to go. You can find all of our connected groups on our Facebook page at Renegade Games. And yeah, so it's great. We're doing a campaign. Hooray. But I'm sure that all these people already are aware of the game and are here just to find out a little bit more about you. So I have some questions for you. So first, Scott, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Just quick introduction.
Yeah, so Scott Almes, probably most known by this group as a freelance game designer. Been designing since about 2010, so getting into year 12 here. Have jumped around a bunch of different genres, most known for solo games and games in small boxes with big gameplay, and things like that. So I've been a gamer all my life, starting with card games, Monopoly, the normal stuff. My gateway game was Munchkin, which led to Catan, which led to Ticket to Ride, and then led to many, many more and shelves full of games as well. I don't have my shelf in this room, but it's down in the basement, and that's where I have my IKEA furniture filled with board games.
Nice, that's awesome.
So yeah, that's like my game background. By day, I work in product innovation. So I run an innovation function at a large retail company. So.
Wow, that sounds very fancy, but it makes a lot of sense with what you do with board games. It's very creative. Neat. That's cool. So what was the very first game that you ever designed?
The first game I designed was Merchandise. So it got published in 2010 with Tasty Minstrel Games. It was also my first Gen Con, was the first Gen Con it got released. So being in a booth where it was selling was like a very overwhelming first experience at a game convention, having never been to any game convention before, and diving right in with Gen Con. But it ended up being a pretty good one to like demo there and got like a great reception, which was awesome.
I remember that game. It came in a little tiny canister, right? Yep. Like a Coke can. It was very cute. Oh, that's super fun. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, and then that one's actually going to get re-released with a new publisher soon, I think within the next year. So it all comes back around again. So, but yeah, I was happy. It was in print for quite a long time, which was awesome.
That's fantastic. That's a nice little, like, we're in between a couple games, pull a game off your shelf. Merchandise is super fun. Yeah. I love that. That's very cool. So to date, I know that wasn't the only game that you have designed and had published. How many total games are on that list for you now?
Yeah, it's around 50, depending on whether you're counting expansions and not. Mostly tiny epic games. That takes almost like 25% of those. But yeah, and everywhere from like those fair amount of solo games, everywhere from like these solo games I've been doing with Button Shy games that are just 18 cards in a wallet to my big Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea game that I did with Gameland Games. That's like a complete table hog and actually doesn't even really fit well on my own kitchen table, let alone many other people's. But is a incredibly epic experience. So yeah, I like to mix it up a little bit, and some have been, just different genres, different game styles, and different audiences too. I like to keep things like innovative and jump around a lot.
That's awesome. So you have designed a lot of different things in your career, but most of them have been very tiny, big games in a small box, like you mentioned. And I definitely see that in Wreckland Run as well. So what led you to go down that path? Because that actually takes a lot of self-editing, a lot of extra work to get things down to that smaller scale while still having a good experience.
Yeah, it's probably luckily of just my like engineering and product background too, where we're always trying to focus on like minimal viable product. Like what's the most lean way we can like have that like get the job done and things like that. So I am always looking at like how to trim out like all the like little extra bits to get like right into the fun of the game, and always being like, you know, if I cut out 10% of the game, could I still retain the game? And kind of ask myself that several times until I actually get to like the core game. And also some of it's practical too. Like, love to travel, love to like, my family will go to like a beach house or something like that too. And I love just to tote a whole thing of games. It's very hard to bring like a bunch of Ticket to Ride size boxes, but it's very easy to bring like tons of small card game boxes and things like that to have all those options. Because I'm sure many people here have the same problem whenever you're trying to plan a game night or a series of game nights, and you're like, well, I want to bring like 30 games so I have all the options available to me. I don't want to like maybe plan around one. I want options the whole time. And having a bunch of small boxes really helps with that.
That's fantastic. I love the practicality of that. But I do think it makes your games also really easy to pick up and start playing and understand while getting that really big experience. I love that about them.
Thanks.
That's very cool. So what is your favorite game you've designed so far? Or at least if you don't want to answer that exact one, what's maybe a favorite mechanic of a game that you've designed? Either way.
Yeah. So I'll say one game that just has a really near and dear shape in my heart is my game, The Great Dinosaur Rush, because it's one that like when I'm designing games, I'm always like curious, like, is there a target audience for this? Like could it go somewhere? Is a publisher going to be like interested in that one? I just kind of ignored all those voices and just made it like just for me. So it was very like kind of indulgent in that way, because little Scott, when he was growing up, thought he was going to be a paleontologist. I did not become a paleontologist. But I've always had like that love of dinosaurs, and I got to like kind of explore paleontology. It gave me an excuse to read a bunch of historical books on the history of paleontology, because now it was for work, and it wasn't just me just picking up all these games and like randomly reading and things like that. So,
So fun.
So yeah, that was just a fun one to work on, because we added in like all these historical contexts, and it's a very creative game as well. It almost feels like a little bit of like you get to draw your own dinosaur, but it has like a very good rule set behind it. So it's a quirky one, and it was made just for me. So
that's amazing. I love using board games as a way to explore things that you're curious about or that you have an interest in, even if you don't get to do that in your day-to-day life. It's a really good avenue for that. That's awesome. So speaking of themes, we just talked about dinosaurs, paleontology is a great theme. So Wreckland Run is a little bit darker than that.
Yes.
So where did this post-apocalyptic theme come from? It's maybe not something we all want to experience in the real world. So where did it come from?
So we mentioned like I've had an opportunity to do a lot of games, which has just been fantastic. But one thing I just had never like tried to design a game in was post-apocalyptic. So I kind of set myself a challenge of like, it's a very big theme. It's a well-known one, but I had never done a game with that theme before. So I kind of just, it was a personal challenge to be like, well, what game would I make in that space? And just started to explore from there, read a couple like post-apocalyptic books, watched some common post-apocalyptic movies, and just kind of got my like a sense of the theme, and tried to say like, what game would I design that like really like evokes what this genre is all about.
Neat. Yeah. And in post-apocalyptic themes, there's a lot of different directions you can take. You can go with resource management because resources are really scarce. You can go with climate, all sorts of other things. So why a car chase, which is what, of course, Wreckland Run is about.
Yeah. So I think it probably just comes down to like, as I was reading some books, watching some movies, just my favorite piece of media was like the Mad Max movies, or like those more like Yeah, the like Borderlands, the video game too. Like those are like that theme really dug with me the most. Like really like stood out to me. And whenever I started to think about like especially like Mad Max Fury Road, where you had that big car chase, and that's like whenever it clicked that I felt like that was like that felt like one of the most I'm going to say fun if you could think being chased by a bunch of post-apocalyptic marauders fun. The most fun thing to do in a game, and it also instantly told me it was a solo game because that just felt like that one person surrounded like a whole horde of enemies. Like that, the theme really shaped like, okay, I'll do a post-apocalyptic solo game about being like a big car chase. Like it just, well, it just all came together right from the beginning, and those were my constraints that I started to design too.
So in this one, did you design from the theme into the mechanics, or did you have some mechanics that you were thinking about and then this theme also worked with those?
Definitely theme first. So yeah, it all came down to I wanted that car chase with the theme, decided it was solo, and that was like the notes at the top of the blank sheet of paper, and then everything else came from there.
Do you usually design that way, or do you just sort of flip in between?
Uh, it it definitely varies because sometimes I'll yeah, it can come so many different ways because sometimes I'll start with a theme, come up with a mechanic for it, and that mechanic is fun, but it doesn't fit the theme. So I just move the mechanic aside, then I'll design another game to match it. Or sometimes I'll stumble on like a really fun mechanic and just really struggle for a theme. Um, like I know one of my solo games coming out with Button Shy, the next one, it actually underwent like several themes with, had like the gameplay working out really well. But we couldn't get the theme and it just like cycled through several. So it can come both ways.
That's, I think, the fun and the challenging part of
Yeah.
designing is making sure that it's fun.
Yeah.
There are lots of things we could do with dice and cards and all sorts of things, but it has to actually be fun, which is becoming more and more of a challenge because there's so many good games out right now.
Mhm.
So you have to really step it up to be able to compete with all of the amazing opportunities we have for gaming at this time.
Oh yeah.
So, how long did it take you to create Wreckland Run? It seems like it's very polished at this point.
Yeah, I'd probably say in total about like 2 years. I do like very commonly go like really into a couple games for like a month or two, and then I'll set it aside and work on something else because I always feel like the time away from it helps. But probably all said and done around 2 years.
Wow. So, how many games are you working on at one time then?
So I'd probably say I have, counting in my head, like 4 in active development right now. Uh,
Wow.
so which is pretty common.
Do you have a pretty good group of people who help you play, who do development with you, and really help polish those?
Yeah, and it's yeah, not only that, but also through a couple of my games since I've been able to work in series too. We also have which is very like some of them have very great fan bases that also help in that early one. So like people who like really like not only just the game itself, what we're trying to do, but also like does this fit in the series? Does this kind of accomplish the goals there too? So yeah, not only just my personal groups, but also just the community groups I've gotten to know through releasing some of these games have been awesome.
That's cool. Yeah, I know we at Renegade also have a playtesters group. So if anybody watching is interested and really likes that development part of the game design, it's arguably one of the most important things that happens
Yes.
in between a concept and it going on a shelf, just making sure that it really works for everybody and it's the rule book is laid out and understandable and all that. So we have a great group, and if you're interested in that and want to get involved, look for that Facebook group again through our main Renegade group, and you'll see all the different groups that we have available. And one of them is a playtesters group. And so you can apply there and then help with future fun games like this.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else you want to tell us about Wreckland Run? Because I'm also incredibly excited about the new Warp's Edge expansion. I want to chat about that a little bit, but anything else about Wreckland Run you want to mention?
Just as you mentioned, like the playtesting development, like definitely shout out, like love being paired with TC Petty again, the developer extraordinaire. We worked on Warp's Edge together and have known each other for quite a while. So I was super jazzed to find out he was the developer. And it's I mean, I'm up here talking about it, but it's also significantly better because he touched it. So I can only claim so
That's
much
awesome.
credit for that lovely polished version that's on the Kickstarter.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, we love working with TC. He's just a genuinely wonderful person and a brilliant developer. And that's such an important thing, like we talked about. So, yay. Hi, TC, if you're out there. We're excited that you worked on this. Very cool. So, Warp's Edge, alongside this Kickstarter, and as part of it, we are also doing Warp's Edge expansion. So, a couple years ago, we put out Warp's Edge, and honestly, we weren't totally 100% sure how many solo people were out there, and how many would be excited about a sci-fi solo game. And we were very pleasantly surprised by a strong Kickstarter for that. So we're happy to have the expansion for it in this Kickstarter as part of that. So tell us just a little bit about Warp's Edge Anomaly.
Yeah, so Warp's Edge Anomaly, so it's the second expansion because we did the Viren expansion in the first campaign. Was super excited to revisit this campaign because, as you said, like when we put up the first campaign, like we weren't sure what the reception would be. Solo gaming was definitely on the newer side. Oh, it's always been around, but it was just a little bit on the uptick. And like I think Warp's Edge at the moment is on Board Game Geek my second highest like average rated game. So like
Wow.
the reception's just been amazing on it. So I was really thrilled to be able to revisit it again. And definitely had the challenge of, okay, if I go back into the game, like what do I want to put into it? And the two obvious ones were more ships and motherships. Like I feel like people wanted more Starcrafts to fly, and then they wanted more motherships to fight against, in addition to more enemies, because the more variability, and then nice thing since everything's compatible with what's in the base game, it just exponentially gives you more challenges and more puzzles to try to sort out. So in the game, you'll find those additional challenges. You'll find new starships and then the new motherships to go. And then it has the unique mechanic of these anomalies, which actually will put in some unique tokens into your bag, because that's a place that we didn't really play with in the first expansion, was actually having some things that will go into your bag and really mess with your strategy a little bit, but also give you some opportunities as well. So that's going to be something fun for people who pick up the expansion to explore as well. Is not only is it some more of what you hopefully love from the base game in the first expansion, but the new token type adds a whole other twist to it as well.
Oh, I can't wait to play with that. That's going to be fantastic. I love the suspense and Warp's Edge of reaching into the bag and not knowing what you're going to grab out. And then you look at your tokens, and then suddenly you have all these ideas for how you want to use your strategy and how you can make that work. Or you're just really disappointed and know you're going to die, have to start over, but that's okay too. So messing with that bag a little bit, I think will be really fun. But having more ships to fight against, that's what solo gaming is all about. It's about the challenge and having those new experiences and sort of like going through another level of a video game, but you get to do it with these amazing tactile pieces that you can touch and play with on your board. So, oh, I love Warp's Edge. I'm just really excited about this expansion. It's going to be great. Cool. So my next question is, when you decided to go back to space and do a Warp's Edge Anomaly expansion, how did you decide, like, these are the things that we need to add to this game? I guess you kind of talked about that a little bit, but like, what was your initial concept like?
Yeah, it's because I thought about a bunch of different things that I could potentially add. Like, did I want to add like attachments to your ship that you wanted to do, or things like that, or did I want to add like mini bosses in that you might have to face like at different stages of the warp and things like that? And several of them just didn't pass playtesting. They felt weird or tacked on weird, or like had an odd overlap. Like, and by that I mean like with the spaceships, I tried on like, oh, you could add permanent things to your spaceships. They just kind of felt like a weird version of the skill cards. So they didn't really add anything. They just made everything more confusing for the player. So it kind of ruined some of that like streamlined flow. And adding in like some mini bosses along the way, they just detracted by that big battle at the end against the mothership, which is not what I wanted. I didn't want to like de-emphasize that battle. I wanted to make it still exciting. So I did kind of have like a whole like list of different things to try, and most of them just play tested out. And what I was happy with is kind of still having that like new element to the game, because I didn't want to just add more ships from other ships, although we definitely wanted more of that. I wanted at least one new twist, which is why I was very happy like the anomaly tokens worked out the way they did, because it added a new twist to a space that we hadn't really twisted in the first expansion. And it still keeps the game like very streamlined and still moving. So there's not a lot of stuff to learn. If you pick up the new expansion, I mean, you're going to be able to get running with the new starship and the new motherships like instantly. And then you just have to really learn the rules for the anomaly tokens, and you're like ready to go. So
that's fantastic. Very cool. One thing we did get several questions in the Kickstarter comments about was just, if you want X thing and it's not in a bundle, how do you get it? And so, especially for anybody who loved Warp's Edge and you're looking for that playmat or any of those token upgrade kits or anything like that, you can add any of those as add-ons in the Kickstarter. We'll have all of them in the pledge manager after the fact, so you won't miss out on any of that stuff. And maybe you want to get some other weird combination of things and end up with Warp's Edge, Anomaly, and maybe some of the Wreckland Run stuff, but not all of it. However you want to do that, you can make up whatever combination bundle works for you. So hooray. Awesome. One thing that I really, really love in board games in general, and honestly, at my own table, most games that hit the table are campaign games. And I have a group that I play with every single week, and we mostly just play campaign games. And Warp's Edge and Wreckland Run are both very narrative, very story driven, and I would call both of them campaign games in their own way. So I think that that's just really, really neat. But how did you decide that with a solo game that you wanted to have that narrative added on?
Yeah. So especially for Wreckland Run, it really helped. Like, one of the things I feel like every solo game that gets released is asking about, like, how difficult should the game be? Like, should I, things like that. And I love the idea of a campaign game because it really helps you kind of bake that in of like a way to like really like ramp things up in a very natural way for the player to do so. So that's one thing that's very appealing to a campaign game. And also just it being a solitary experience. Like, one of the things that you miss is other players at the table who might just add a little bit like side talk or like getting into the theme with you. Having it campaign driven gives another way to like lift the overall theme of the game and help bring it out. So it gives you a little bit of reason to return. It gives you just a little bit more that surrounding like theme of what you're playing against. And it makes it just a little bit more robust experience having it. So there's just a lot of great things that come with having a solo game with a campaign that it just makes it very appealing to do so. And it's fun. It's fun to kind of stretch out, like make up, try to tie the bosses together in a way that like has a little bit of narrative flow. And yeah, just, I think it just creates such a cool experience for the gamer.
That's really neat. Yeah, I can't wait to go through Wreckland Run with the campaign and see how that works and really dig into that and go through the whole campaign. So yay, that's gonna be fun. So did you come up with this story yourself? Is this something you worked with a writer on? How did that happen?
We worked with a writer on it. So had a very like bare bones description of how they might be able to be tied together. And I think I wrote some flavor text for a couple of boxes just to also give some guidance to the writer and the artist as well. But it was really the writer who helped pull the whole thing together, which is really great.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, definitely a different skill set. So we're happy to have them working with us. That's cool. So back to Wreckland Run, I had a few other exciting questions. What was your favorite bad guy in Wreckland Run? Because you are running around from a lot of baddies, running away from. So who's your favorite one?
Yeah, I have to probably admit it's the first one, Big Fossil, just because it has the big T-Rex skull on the front of his car, and mentioned my love of dinosaurs a little bit earlier. So that was like the first description I wrote for like an over-the-top bad guy. I was like, what if you're getting chased by the guy who just has a big T-Rex skull on the front of his car for no reason? Because that super doesn't make any sense. And it made it to the final game, which is even cooler. So it's very easy for me to put it into a rough flavor description in my very rough prototype, but it's another thing to get all the way through playtesting and then art direction.
That sounds very realistic. I mean, if we're in a post-apocalyptic world and you're driving around in your car and you come across a huge T-Rex skull that's, just been
Yeah,
exposed from the elements, why wouldn't you put that on your car?
yeah,
Obviously.
that is true.
Fantastic. And speaking of vehicles, what's your favorite mothership in Warp's Edge or Warp's Edge Anomaly?
Ooh, I have to say the Revenant one, the one that it has a transformation partway through wherever it has like the boss mode at the end when it turns into the big robot. So that one's just very fun and stands out for the other ones because it has that little bit of like thematic twist to it. And that one's, yeah, that's definitely
And
my
it's
favorite one.
challenging.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So I assume that you play other board games, although you have so many games in development, you're probably mostly playing your own. But of all board game mechanics, what is your favorite mechanic to play with?
Ooh, I do love programming games. What I love about programming games is not only do I love that puzzle of like having that opportunity to really like kind of plan out ahead. Um, I love that little bit of chaos whenever things don't go according to plan. So games like Robo Rally, where things start off so well the first couple turns, and then by turn 4 and 5, like everything's just falling apart. Like I love that little bit of chaos. So
I think that one thing about entertainment in general is that you need to have some amount of suspense and
mhm,
surprise and intrigue. And doing that in board games can be really hard because there's nothing moving, it's not
mhm,
animated. So creating that suspense through mechanics, although
mhm.
challenging, can be really important for a game's success.
Oh yeah.
So I love that. That's fun. I also really enjoy programming games. Awesome. So what game is getting the most time on your table right now?
Oh geez. So I have a 3-month-old, so not too many at the moment.
Well,
uh,
congratulations. That's
Thank
like
you.
a whole board game all by itself.
Yeah, yeah, she's amazing, but it does mean there's less time for games. So what we've been trying to sneak in is actually we have a couple button shy games that are like 18 card games that all play like under 20 minutes. So we've been sneaking in a couple of those when able to, and it's really been rather development work or those games. And I think it'll change soon, but at the moment, yeah, I'm eager to get back to some of our more robust 2-player games and things like that. We were starting to play through Micro Macro. Can't remember what the
Ooh,
first one's
fun.
called. Crime City, I think the first one is. It's like
Hmm.
a mystery solving game, which is I love mystery solving games as well. So eager to get back to those challenges as well.
Very, very cool. So, in light of this information you've just presented about your 3-year-old, what game are you going to try and teach her first whenever she reaches an age where board games make sense? What are you most excited to teach her how to play?
Ooh, so I've definitely had a lot of fun with my young niece and nephew, teaching them a bunch of like Haba games, like Monza and some of those ones. So excited for her to get to that age, because
Those are
that'll be
great.
super fun. Great intro games, and love to see them like start to work out strategies and things like that. But also excited to get into like some like classic family feeling games, like trick taking games, and like some of the stuff that like my family's played forever. So it'll be fun to do some of those as well.
That's awesome. I feel like anytime you can get your family around a table and do something
Mhm.
together, it's a good thing. So I
Yeah.
remember spending lots of evenings playing Balderdash with my family, and it was
Oh
just
yeah.
a blast. That's awesome. Very cool. Well, we're about at the end of our time. I don't want to take up any more time because I know with a 3-year-old at home, that's very precious right now. So anything else you want to tell us about the campaign or the design or anything else about Wreckland Run or Warp's Edge?
I think we pretty well covered it. So I hope everyone will check out the campaign. It's been super fun to be able to revisit it. I was so pleased with the reception that Warp's Edge that I was able to come back with another solo game in the series and also do an expansion for the first one. So yeah, I hope to see everyone in the campaign so we can do more. Yeah.
Awesome. We really appreciate your time here today, Scott. And like Scott said, if you haven't checked out the campaign yet, please go do so. It's awesome. There's no stretch goals because It's a brutal post-apocalyptic world out there. And so we know that you needed everything right from the beginning. So no need to wait. You can jump in right now, get all the add-ons that you want right away. And yeah, watch the campaign. We have a great team working on all of the fun updates and getting this game out to you as soon as possible. So we're really excited to be able to be part of this. Really appreciate the community, and of course, Scott and all the other design team, all the artists, story writers, everybody behind it. So thank you so much, and we'll hopefully see you again soon. Thanks.
Thanks.